and breathe. Welcome to the den, everybody. I'm actually find myself on the TV gantry at the moment. It's the only place that I could find with some light. So otherwise, as you can see, that's the football pitch, all very dark behind me. I've managed to get at least some light, so you can at least see me whilst we talk through what was a wonderful Norwich City win. They've beaten Millwall here today by 3-2. It was a game that I, like so many people, were probably really intrigued about and really interested about, because the record that Norwich City have against the top 10 as it was going into today, it's changed a little bit since, has been on the whole very negative. 2 wins all season. One of them came against Millwall, one of them came against Sunderland, but beyond that run of games, it's been a very difficult, dire run really for Norwich City. But they came here, they faced adversity, they stared it in the face, and they've come away with 3 absolutely precious points. They're back in the top 6 for the first time this year. 19 points now, I think, and 19 points under David Wagner from 9 games. Just an incredible return, an incredible transformation, really, from a group now that does look like it is. I'm saying this very, very tentatively, but wins like today really help build that feeling that this is a group that is heading for the top 6 of the Championship and the playoffs and the playoff picture. And, you know, we said during the team news video, which you can go and watch, and when we were kind of framing this, a defeat here for Norwich would have seen Millwall go 5 points ahead of them in the table. Blackburn won earlier in the day as well. They may seem quite far away, particularly Blackburn, but there was an opportunity for gaps to start emerging again. And after all that good work that they put in over the last few weeks to close that gap, largely against teams in the middle and bottom of this league, this was a game that Norwich City couldn't afford to lose. And, you know, I'd assigned for a point before the game kicked off, but actually to leave here with a win in front of 3,000 fans who are in that end behind me, to play as well as they did at periods, but actually to come through the character test and to come through the type of game that this was, I think it will give everybody, players, coaches, fans, us, officials, whoever you want, lots and lots and lots about lots of belief and optimism that David Wagner has really fueled since he arrived at the club in January. And this has all been building up to a win, because I think a lot of people have been asking themselves, again, myself included in that, whether Norwich City would be able to withhold and withstand the test of a kind of better Championship side, a better quality of Championship side, a side who, you know, certainly in Millwall's case, haven't lost here since September. Very good run of form. They've taken 4 points off Burnley and Sheffield United here relatively recently. All of these kind of statistics back up what was a really important day, and probably a game that we would be able to view Norwich City in probably a better light against a team that ultimately they could be facing in the playoffs, or they would certainly hope to be placing in the playoffs, or certainly a side that's competing against the playoffs. Apologies, I've got a little bit of a cold. I'm sure that's coming through, but it hasn't dampened today. So hopefully I don't have a coughing fit during this. But this was so the game started probably a little bit as I expected. It was Millwall came out of the traps. They were energetic. They were willing to press Norwich City. They had a lot of energy, buoyed by what a Millwall official has told us is the biggest crowd in this place ever. I don't know if that's true, so don't quote me on that, but that's certainly excuse me, that's certainly what we were hearing. So to come here and to face that, I think you're always expecting that there's going to be some kind of early pressure to withstand, but actually withstanding that pressure and conceding what was a really sloppy goal. It was a long ball forward. Hanley and McLean kind of get in each other's way. Hanley wins the header, which is then kind of put through by Zian Fleming, who is able to nod it back, because that's where McLean would have been had he not fallen to the ground. Bradshaw gets a really clever nick over Ben Gibson first, and then draws Angus Gunn out, and it's a brilliant finish from someone who scored, I think it was 4 goals in 2 games prior to this one. Excuse me, sorry. So that then felt really decisive, because I think many of us felt that this would be a game of fine margins, and to go 1-0 down here with the velocity of the crowd, of this home record, kind of felt all of the odds were conspired against Norwich City. It felt like this group that David Wagner said in recent weeks as well wasn't particularly good at withstanding adversity and finding solutions to problems that were staring them in the face, and that, you know, we've criticised and fans have criticised them for maybe being unable to respond to these situations accordingly. The fact that they then improved and actually produced a better performance, that they found the solutions. Thought Millwall were quite obdurate. They dropped off quite a bit. The energy kind of sapped out of them a bit. I think we saw the effects of a very thin squad, some players returning from injury today, but also the fact they had a game in midweek that they put so much effort into, and likewise had a very good first half and then kind of waned away a little bit. And I felt that helped Norwich build into the game, and they began to get a bit more of a feel for the ball. And I was a little bit frustrated watching it live because it didn't feel like they were taking opportunities to progress the ball. But actually, on reflection, I think it gave them an opportunity to kind of feel their way into the contest, to get players touches, because there were a few who were getting the ball and were instantly who were getting pressed really hard and really high. And so their decision making wasn't particularly great, but also they were taking or panicking a little bit on the ball, it looked like. So to install that composure and allow them to get a feel for it and just to work their way through it, I think that was such an important period. So then to go and improve on that performance that was, again, very sloppy, very frantic in that first half, to then score with a very clever set piece on the stroke. It was 38 minutes. So I don't know. Can you class that a stroke of half time? Someone who's in charge of cliches will have to let me know. But certainly in the latter part of the half, it was a really important time to score because they capped off the improvement with a goal, and that helped them manage what was a pretty difficult opening 25 minutes or so. And then they went into the break, really, the better team, looking like in more control, looking fresher, looking more energetic. Excuse me. So in the second half, they were then had a foundation to build on to an extent. And that gave them the kind of ability to go and produce what they produced, because they've come up against a team that was looking a little bit tired. Some gaps were beginning to appear. They kind of drew Millwall out a little bit, because I think Millwall would have been happy just to sit there and look quite contained. They're well drilled under Gary Rowett, and they've got a very... I think it's a lot of people are quite stereotypical with Millwall. They play better football than they're often given credit for under Gary Rowett, but those elements that perhaps is the reason they're stereotyped is what they also do very well. They're very good at set pieces. They're very physical. They're very tall. And the thing is, if Norwich would have come here today and this would have turned into a wrestling match or a boxing match, they would have lost. They don't have the physicality, the height, the strength, the power, maybe not even necessarily, to overcome what this team is and what it's so good at. But what they do have is better technicians and better footballers, and their ability to problem solve today was really impressive. I've spoken to, again, a Millwall official. I've listened to a bit of Gary Rowett as well. And a lot of teams come here and they don't find solutions to those problems. The fact that Norwich City have, they deserve absolutely massive praise for. And it's a credit to David Wagner, his coaching team, for giving them tools and giving the resources to find the solutions that other teams haven't been able to find this season. It is tough here. The crowd are up are against you. It's intense is probably the word I would use. But actually, you can flip that round, because if you get some kind of grab of the game, or you can hold the game and drag the game along, this crowd can turn around pretty quickly. And that's what we kind of saw. But Norwich were able to do that. They stemmed the flow a little bit. They were pressing a lot better. They were finding passes a lot more. You had kind of issues where, excuse me, players weren't necessarily showing for the ball when they should have been, and that was causing issues with progressing the ball in kind of that very sticky 25 minutes. But thereafter, they found the rhythm. They pushed the defensive line up. You could kind of see them grow, actually, in this game as it wore on. And then the second goal is absolutely massive. And again, on El Hernandez, it's a really good sort of quick feints to go one way, goes the other, doesn't get tracked by the defender, but has plenty to do when he receives that ball. It's a cross almost to try and pull it back. It hits Tom Bradshaw, and he's in such good goal-scoring form at the moment that it connected with his heel and ended up into his home net. And then it was on El Hernandez again who provided the third goal. Really brilliant burst of pace, very kind of typical winger type movement. Got to the byline. I thought it was a better cross than it probably actually was, but he still managed to find Gabriel Sauer, who has a lot to do. Touch has kind of pushed the ball into the ground, and on the turn he's managed to connect with it wonderfully, and it's come off the under the side of the bar. And probably the form that he's in at the moment, that was always going to end up in the back of the net rather than probably over the bar or wide or saved by the goalkeeper. That is what he is producing at the moment. And obviously FIFA President Gianni Infantino was here, not just for Teemu Pukki's 200th appearance. I'm sure that's a nice gesture for FIFA to send some recognition for the GOAT, but also he got to see Gabriel Sauer. And actually, I think there are a few people, and I would include championship teams in this, probably watching Gabriel Sauer early on in the season, wondering why Norwich City had spent the money that they spent on him. I think we're increasingly seeing that now. And actually, he is maybe the poster boy of a theme. I chuck on El Hernandez into this group, and I chuck other players into this group as well. David Wagner is improving individuals and the collective more widely, and there's a clarity in terms of their game plan. But he is improving individual. On El Hernandez looks a man absolutely transformed at the moment. Looks so confident the way he's dancing past players, but also that criticism that he's had about end product. Well, he's beginning to find that now. I think it's 4, 5, maybe 5 assists. Yeah, it is 5 assists since David Wagner took over for Onel Hernandez. Some return for all the talk of the goals and Gabriel Sara. Get that man a new contract. He is playing for one. He's going to earn one, in my opinion. And he is proving such a massive asset. And he gives them a little bit of a different dimension, because actually, even though Norwich are inverted kind of on one side, because Hernandez holds the width so well, it allows Max Aarons at points to become inverted and play almost as an extra midfielder, and to produce an overload on that side of the pitch. And that gives them a different option to kind of play out and switch the play. So that's really nice, and his inclusion is really nice. And then interestingly, we had Jakob Sørensen in today, and so Norwich played a 4-2-3-1. Sarah was absolutely behind Pukki when they had the ball, but when they were off the ball, it was more of a 4-1-4-1. McLean was the deeper line midfielder, but actually in the build-up play, it gave them an extra option. And I've kind of made this point a few weeks ago, actually, that sometimes when they're building up, because they drop McLean in, Sarah can get left quite isolated in that kind of central zone, and you can't really afford to do that against Millwall, because they are so good in transition and so good on the counter. And I think what we saw from David Wagner was probably a recognition that you needed to counter that, and Jakob Sørensen gave them the ability to do that, helped them kind of balance that area off. He's quite conservative in the way that he plays, and the way that he covers space is excellent. There are a couple of really important fouls at crucial times as well. It's a performance that will probably go a little bit under the radar, I suspect, because of Hernandez's contribution, because of Sarah's contribution, because of Pukki's 200th appearance, etc. But absolutely do not underestimate the importance of it. It was excellent. And then Norwich being Norwich, of course, they were never going to do this the easy way. Corner comes in from the right side towards the end. Look, Millwall are very strong on set pieces. Zian Fleming rises I really like him as a player. Really big, really powerful. I think he's one that will. I still think there's more to come from him. This is his first year in English football. I could see him really setting this division alight in future seasons, and then it would come to. I think he would then be able to push on, because he's got those facilities to do that. To have an attacking midfielder who's an aerial threat is really interesting. So that's one, and it was a little bit nervy. Tom Bradshaw had one. I think it was Bradshaw had one cleared off the line from Grant Hanley. Absolutely heroic effort, as important as a goal in my view. And yeah, they saw it out, and the celebrations at the end were really important and really special with the Ole's return, but it was a collective one. It wasn't just David Wagner leading them. And 3,000 fans were here today. And as I said right at the start, and I've said throughout this week, and I've written, it felt like the day that probably hope turned into belief. There's a real momentum behind this group now. Only Burnley, only Middlesbrough have taken more points than Norwich City since David Wagner's arrival. They're hitting form at the right time. They've entered the top six at the right time. And teams aren't going to be enjoying playing them. And Gary Rowett said it. He believes Burnley are the only team that are better than Norwich City at the moment, particularly the way that they play. I think the problem has been mistakes individually, but also mentality. And actually, it's the type of win that I think everyone will just push their shoulders back and go, okay, it's on. And it is. It's very much on for this group of Norwich City players. They have the talent. They now have shown that they've got the other side to the game, and the character that maybe has been questionable at points this season, and that ability to face adversity and come through it. And these type of challenges, good teams come through. And not many teams, no team since September has come here and been able to up their levels and be able to solve the problems that Millwall have posed them. That's a massive credit to Norwich City, and it's almost transformational from what we've seen. We're seeing players now who couldn't get a kick prior to David Wagner's arrival looking like absolute world beaters, and that, I'm afraid, is good coaching. And I made this point a few times under Dean Smith. I watched Norwich City this year, and you can take it as a criticism of Dean Smith or whatever you like, but you watched Norwich City and they did not look well coached. They didn't look like there was a clarity or an understanding necessarily of what they were trying to do. All of that is non-existent now. David Wagner has a very clear structure. Norwich have a very clear way of playing. The players know their roles. They perform their roles in really exciting fashion. And when they get going, and they played good football at points, but they had to do the difficult stuff as well, they're a force for any team at this level, whether they're in the top six or whether they're not. And that's why there's been such an onus on that record against the top six sides, because that ultimately will judge whether Norwich City finish in the playoffs. If they can beat those teams in the round, and they've got Sheffield United to come, Middlesbrough to come, Sunderland, of course, next week. I know they got beat 5-1 by Stoke today, but still very much in the playoff picture. So these are tests that we are going to grade Norwich City against. And, you know, what we probably learn is that they probably aren't as good as Sheffield United or Middlesbrough in the weeks ahead, but actually they don't need to be, as long as they can maintain this momentum. And this is why I feel this game was as good as any to measure them against, because it's a team that's been going well, that is ultimately competing for the same type of place in the league that they're competing with. And they've not just got through it, they've got through it really well. And it's a different way to win a game as well. They've won games with David Wagner in charge, looking very good, looking very dominant. They didn't necessarily have it their own way today. And in many ways, that fills me with a lot more encouragement than what we've seen. Right, I'm going to go before my voice completely dies. Plenty more content at pinkham.com and on the Pinkham Plus app as well. Actually, I just wanted to say really clever set pieces. I think Chris Gorham made the point. When you come here, it's land of giants in the penalty area. If you can find solutions to that of playing it on the floor, actually, you can have real joy for that. David Wagner's wanted them to score from more set pieces. They've done that. Interestingly, Alan Russell wasn't here today, or if he was, I certainly didn't see him. And it's Andy Hughes who appears to be getting the credit for those routines. So we'll see what happens there in the days, hours, weeks ahead. But yeah, that's it. Pinkham.com, Pinkham Plus app, the place to go. From South London, 3 points, back in the top 6. Big, big, big win. Thank you very much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I think you will. I need to lie down.